everything.
Do you wear like a certain pair of glasses in order to see?
No.
All right, just checking.
All right, let's talk about the 4 dimensions and then, you know.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
everything that we can experience is, represented by 4 dimensions of space-time, which is sort of the catch-all term to describe 3 dimensions of space, and time is an added factor, so that within those 4
The
dimensions,
experience of consciousness
yeah,
in itself.
within the 4 dimensions, you can accurately describe where and when anything is.
Okay.
It's the physical realm, what we know.
Right.
Yeah. And then, but as you go...
So that's the base.
That's
Foundation.
yeah, that's what we can experience.
Okay.
We're contained within the 4 dimensions that we know about.
So
but
beyond that,
within the theory, there are an extra 7 dimensions, and the highest dimension, the 11th dimension, has been said to be a membrane, or sort of like a 2-dimensional layer, if you will, that everything else exists on, and only with that 11th dimension do the other 10
on or in?
on.
Both?
Kind of. I mean, it is just supposedly 2-dimensional, so
Right.
kind of on. It'd almost be like a big sheet of cloth or something like that. And
Yeah.
that's where you hear all
Just
of
the fabric of reality.
Yeah, that's where you hear all the fabric of space-time and
Yeah.
all that. That's how black holes can exist, because that's literally a tear
It's flexible.
through the fabric,
Something
through the
happened.
membrane, yeah.
Well, okay, for the viewer that may be interested but not knowing.
The one who's going,
Yeah, exactly. All right, explain the way you just showed me, using the piece of paper type of thing. Yeah, I mean, go ahead. We have the idea that there may be multiple dimensions.
Yep.
And, I mean, there could be multiple space-times within a, 5th dimension or something. And they cannot see each
alternate
other.
realities.
Right, exactly.
It's sort of the concept that was proposed in the book Flatland.
No, never heard of it.
Which is it's a great book. I haven't read the whole thing actually, but I know a lot of younger people who have read the book, and it's sort of a story. It doesn't get into a lot of the science of things, but it's a very elegant way of explaining how there might be more around us than we're able to perceive. The book is about characters who live in a 2-dimensional world, and they are introduced to a 3-dimensional object, which, in their world of 2 dimensions, they only perceive in 2 dimensions. But as it passes through their world, it's a sphere, and it seems to get larger. It basically is represented by a circle, and it expands and then contracts as it goes through.
What a great metaphor.
Yeah, so we could be experiencing things from higher dimensions, but they only appear in our 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension.
So we're only going to be able to view it and experience it in terms of that perception that we have, whether it's more than that or not.
Yeah.
Which is possibly how gravity
Wow.
works. In the
Well, gravity is, there are the 4 forces
Right,
in the universe,
yes.
which is the electromagnetic force, gravity, and then the 2 nuclear forces, which is, the strong nuclear force, which is what, holds atoms together, things like that, and then there's the...
Well, wait, gravity technically is not a force, though. It's more like a wave, weren't we saying?
Well, it's still counted as one of the forces.
Okay.
By physicists. But the tricky part is that gravity is the only one out of the 4 forces that affects all of the dimensions. It seems that the other forces are contained within our 4 dimensions of space-time.
Right.
But gravity can sort of seep through, if you will, from higher dimensions back into us, and vice versa. So if there is matter that exists, or even just sort of formless gas clouds of subatomic particles that exist on the higher dimensions,
Right.
we will never be able to experience them, as anything physical in our dimensions, but we can still sort of prove their existence because we can find the effect that they have in our dimension from the gravity.
Right.
They've all got that sort of signature in there.
Right. So, okay. If we have that under our belts, then we also have this idea, well, theoretically, if we have this under our belts. This idea was brought up by Jamie, the idea that electrons, are actually just one electron.
Yeah.
And they travel through space-time in the fact that they may, enter a positive dimension and
So
then
it's
come
all
back down,
one-
type of thing.
One feed. It's just one
It's
circuit,
one thing.
and everything else is just like a million little nerves coming off of that one circuit.
It could be thought of that way, but I'm thinking that it's actually one electron.
Well, because look at this. The electricity in this signal is the same electricity that they're creating at the plant. You know what I mean?
Truth.
If you're catching what I was trying to...
Right, but
Yeah.
then that is inhibited by the speed of light. But we're talking about something that is not inhibited.
Okay.
Something that could be, transferred
Influences
from...
at once,
Right.
theory.
Yeah, it could be transferred from right here all the way to the end of the Milky Way
Yeah.
in one instant.
Yeah,
So,
that's sort of
but
the
if you could-
uncertainty theory, which is that you can't, within quantum physics, you can sort of create images of atoms, but you can't ever pinpoint where an electron is.
Right.
So everything else, every other part of the atom, you can draw pictures of. You can have an
Sometimes
image
I
of
feel
it.
like an electron.
I've noticed.
And that's actually sort of the idea of that's what antimatter is all about. The sense that the electrons aren't actually bound within sort of the time stream the way that we are. Antimatter is actually particles that are traveling backwards in time.
Right.
And the electrons are really what spark that. In some physics,
that really makes sense, though. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole thing that antimatter is moving in one direction and matter is moving the other direction.
Yeah.
It's kind of like water in a river is moving both directions too. Because you could swim upriver just like this if you could follow it the right way.
Yeah,
Because it's moving in both directions.
exactly.
Yeah.
The thought is that because antimatter does have physical properties, it's not. Because the absence of matter is a vacuum. Antimatter is literally the opposite of regular matter, but in order to achieve that, it's going backwards in time. That's why it negates regular matter when they come in contact. But
Yes, and
there is...
you said that it creates an explosion. Is that correct?
Oh, it releases a huge amount of energy.
This is a tangent, but it's...
Yeah. It's actually... I don't know if you guys have gotten a chance to see or read the book Angels and Demons, or see the movie that just came out a little
I
while
saw
ago.
the movie, yeah.
That was the whole... That was antimatter that they used to create that massive explosion.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They just had a small
Oh, right.
bit of suspended antimatter, and it was suspended within a vacuum, but in the movie, when the container's battery ran out, it dropped out of suspension and came in contact with real matter,
Right.
and resulted in that huge explosion.
Right.
Which is several...
Or is it an implosion?
No, it's an explosion. It's just an absurd amount of energy that gets released. It's the most pure form of... I think it's fission.
I wouldn't know.
Which it's significantly more efficient than like nuclear explosions. So for such a small amount of antimatter, you can create a massive explosion.
Right.
But the thought there is that it isn't actually matter colliding and annihilating itself, or matter and antimatter annihilating one another. It's the antimatter going back in time and then changing directions and becoming matter, or vice versa, regular matter switching to antimatter and going back in time. But the real important point to take away from all that is that because electron physicists are able to go different directions in time, they've theorized that a single electron might be everywhere at once. You know, it could be the one electron in every atom.
Because you were saying that